And that now brings us to a little good idea, bad idea game. We got 3 scenarios, 3 potentials to go back and forth on, beginning with, Sarah, something that we spent a good deal debating yesterday, and that is this: good idea or bad idea? Trading Mark Andrews for DK Metcalf. I'll let you begin.
Okay. Well, yesterday we just mostly talked about having DK Metcalf and if he'd be a fit. I don't think we specifically said, would we trade Mark Andrews for DK Metcalf? So good time to go ahead and revisit that. So in the chat, give us your thoughts on each of these, good idea or bad idea, and you can feel free to add a scenario that we'd be happy to answer. So good idea or bad idea, trade Mark Andrews for DK Metcalf. I'll say this, Bobby. In a vacuum for 2025, I say it's a good idea. It's a good idea. And here's why. Let's bring up some of their money, okay, just so we can understand what the difference is between these guys. Because I'm speaking specifically to 2025. I understand that DK Metcalf is also looking for $30 million per year. But in my mind, I can put that off. Okay. And the reason why, let me share my screen here. Let me start with Mark Andrews, who had a great year. Okay. I wish that this was not so far out and I had more time to grab this stuff as a slide, but it is what it is. Okay. So Mark Andrews, 55 receptions, 673 yards, 11 touchdowns. Great season from Mark Andrews, a resurgent season.
And a resurgent second half after a very slow first half statistically, which I think needs to be mentioned when you look at those numbers specifically.
Say that again.
And a resurgent second half because of the slow start, which I think makes those, which can
you
be
think
deceiving.
The numbers are better.
Those numbers that you just pulled up can be deceiving when you consider the fact that he probably wasn't fully healthy. He had the car accident at the beginning of the year or at the end of training camp, and I think all that played a role on top of just how many mouths that Todd Monken had to feed, and yet he still finishes with a single season best in touchdowns. So anyway, just context to the numbers.
Yes, absolutely. For sure, the numbers even better than they look, given what you're saying with the injury. Obviously, the postseason is a different story. DK Metcalf had more yards, but also had more receptions, had fewer touchdowns. Now, Ravens, of course, number 1 in the league in the red zone, right? Number 1 in the league. And so, could you interchange that? If you've got Lamar in there and people are worried about Lamar and they're worried about Derek and Zay and, likely and all that kind of stuff, could he do more in this offense? Could he hit double digits? I think so in this offense, but this is what he did last year. Okay. Now let's look at the money. Let's move that. Let's present the money for again, 2025 is what I'm looking at. I'm going to put the 30 million that is reported that he wants to the side for a second. So here is DK Metcalf. Okay. Let's bring this up. Okay. Because you're looking at base salary, you do not look at his cap hit because the cap hit is what he's already been paid plus his base salary. It's his signing bonuses plus his base salary. His base salary is 18 million. I understand that's a lot. That is a lot. Now, whereas right now you're spending 17 million as a cap hit for the Ravens with Mark. You don't just look at his base salary, right? Because you're already paying this. Your cap hit for Mark Andrews would be 17 million. The cap hit with his base for DK Metcalf would be 18 million. Now, if you're trading Mark, you do still have to pay for the dead cap. So you would still have 6 million of dead cap. So you're paying the basically the 18 plus the 6. So it's a lot. And I understand that. It's a lot. For me, Bobby, because I keep seeing the Ravens falling short. I keep seeing them fall short in the postseason. And you can go to every single postseason and give a different reason why. But I want somebody who I know doesn't have issues in the postseason, which Mark Andrews has shown beyond just the divisional game in Buffalo, but those were obviously the most recent and the most flagrant. Okay. And behind him, you have Isaiah Likely as the next tight end in waiting, who you're probably going to sign to an extension after this year. And then you enter DK Metcalf, and so you have less 2 tight end sets, and you go more with 3 wide receivers. That is a very complete team with a player at a position that your own general manager has said time and time again, we haven't been able to hit on that ever. And now he's actually available. And so you are paying a little bit more in 2025, but you don't have to commit to the $30 million. And the other thing is, it's not like you're wasting it away, because with Mark Andrews, the best you're going to get out of him if you keep him this year and you just let him walk for free, you're going to get a 2027, maybe 4th round comp pick for him. Whereas in this scenario, you're getting DK Metcalf for a year and maybe more, depending on how things work out. So 2027 4th round draft pick, comp pick, if you keep Andrews and then let him walk, or a chance with DK Metcalf, and you're paying about $6 million more than you would have. You can find the money. You can find it. You know how Lamar Jackson feels about him. I want to see some fresh faces in the postseason to help us get over the hump. My confidence in Mark Andrews took a hit in big moments. So for me, it's a good idea. What say you?
We know how Lamar feels about Mark as well.
Mm-hmm.
We talked yesterday about the tweet that you just referenced. We certainly know how he feels about DK Metcalf. And I think we all would agree that DK Metcalf is a heck of a specimen, heck of a player. Probably not going to surprise anybody that I'm out on this idea based on what we discussed yesterday. To me, I have not lost faith in Mark, and I don't think Lamar has either. Everything you laid out makes sense to me, and they could absolutely make this happen. I do want to look at it from a Seattle perspective, though, for a second, because we've seen these reports that not only does DK want a new extension, but Seattle wants a 1st and a 3rd for him. Now, I don't know if they're getting that. That's pretty lofty.
Right.
A 1st and a 3rd.
And so reporters were all like, and Josina, I mean, all national reporters who they're talking to other GMs, they're like, they're going to get at best a 3rd rounder. And so to me, Mark Andrews might be around that, a 3rd or 4th rounder.
That's what I was trying to figure out at this point in his career, given the injury history, given the age. Is that a fair comp? Because would Seattle say, no, we want Mark and a day 3 pick?
Well, I'm comfortable with Mark in like a 7th or 6th rounder, if that's what they're asking for. But it's really close in value. I mean, we've talked about it. Like, Mark is again, if he's worth a 4th round comp pick in 2027, then because it's earlier, maybe he is worth a 3rd. But it's right in there in the 3rd or 4th round.
Sure.
And it's what reporters, not what the team, is saying that they're likely going to get based off of talking to GMs across the league.
Yeah. So going back to what I said yesterday in terms of why, just in case you guys missed it, why I feel like this has a bad idea written all over it. I think the Ravens have what they need. It has not gotten them to where they want to be yet for different reasons, for reasons that we've cited, whether it be player execution or lack thereof, whether it be abandoning the run from a play calling strategy standpoint 2 years ago. But to me, they have the horses in their building, and the way that they're compact, as long as they can find a way to mirror what they do to teams, they run teams out of the building all throughout the regular season, and that has not yet translated consistently to the month of January. I think they're going to find that. They're going to find a way to do that. They're going to retool in the areas that are necessary this offseason, both through the draft and free agency. We know what those areas are. They need a Brandon Stevens replacement. They need help and depth along, well, maybe not depth, but they need a little bit of help when it comes to the edge and pass rushing. They need to figure out what they're doing at guard. They need to figure out what's going on with Ronnie Stanley's contract, and they need to bring in more depth to the wide receiver room in replacing Nelson Aguilar, assuming that he's no longer going to be here. So to me, I think the solution is outside of the DK Metcalf exercise. that we're doing. And to be quite honest with you, I think the solution is in-house right now. It's up to them to look in the mirror and figure out how they're going to solve what they have not yet been able to throughout this era.
What is in-house that you're projecting is solving it?
Exactly what we spent a lot of this offseason discussing with people like Josina and others. How will pressure management, how will we get over the hump? How are we going to look internally inside in the mirror and figure out how we're going to get over the hump? I think it's an internal thing. They have all the talent in the world. They've rebuilt their offensive line successfully. They obviously got to retool that. Lamar's under contract for the foreseeable future, which gives them a dang chance every year, no matter who they have in their wide receiver room.
Yeah.
The King's expected to be extended. I'm
So
sticking
your
with it.
answer is pressure management. That's how the Ravens get over the hump. Okay, one other follow-up question from yesterday that I meant to ask yesterday, but I knew that you wanted to move on. When we did our exercise a week or two ago, and we were listing our needs, the Ravens' biggest needs, we both had offensive line first. And then after that, we went in separate ways. What was your number 2 need?
I know I had wide receiver up there. Was it 2 or 3? I can't remember, honestly.
It was one. Yeah, it might have been 2 or 3. I don't remember where you put pass rusher, but I thought you had it a little bit lower because of the room and all that kind of stuff. So, but that to me runs against. I remember being a little bit surprised that you put receiver so high, like over cornerback when the Ravens will be losing a 17 starter in Brennan Stevens. Not saying he was a phenomenal player, but the point they find a 17 game starter at cornerback. And so my question to you is when you have wide receiver so high in the Ravens' needs, above corner, above pass rusher, above myriad of other needs, why is your response being like, oh, the Ravens don't need an X receiver?
To me, it's mostly what happened availability-wise in the postseason. The fact that they were without 1 and 2. If you had a true number 3 that was pushing Bateman like I believe a Darius Slayton would, then they wouldn't be in a position where you're calling on Anthony Miller to come up from the practice squad. You're signing Steven Sims to sort of try and simulate what Zay does in the backfield. You're using Tylan Wallace. All due respect to Tylan. I don't know if it wouldn't have been such a pressing issue had you had more depth. And so I'll continue to think that is a priority. It's just rounding out the room rather than going the DK route.
Okay. We are on different pages there, but that is no surprise. By the way, I saw a interview with come around that I'm sure has been around, and I have never just heard it. I might be the only one, but it was hilarious to me that DK Metcalf was talking about his diet, and I listened to the whole thing. He doesn't eat. He does 2 workouts, doesn't eat for either one of them. At noon, goes and gets like a coffee at Starbucks, which holds him over to like 4. And then he'll have 3 full bags of candy, which holds him over to like 8 p.m. And then he has dinner, and then he goes to bed.
Can you imagine him and King in the cafeteria together?
I know. Put the King and DK in that same room. I would love to see like them reacting to one another and how they eat. Okay.
You want to lose one second. You want to lose body fat or just be hungry all day, every day? Go hang out with DK and Derek.
What's funny is I actually eat quite a bit of sugar too, but I think you know this, I have McArdle's disease. And so I need it for my muscles, which it's just my muscles can't break down what's stored in there into sugar. And so I have to have high sugar. Go ahead.
Richard's comment.
What do you say?
Yes, and that's a daily part of your life that we probably don't talk about a lot, but that I never lose sight of that. I mean, that's a life-changing thing. But Richard's comment is cracking me up. This is why I hate genetics, he says.
Yeah, it's so true. It is so true. Like it's not even fair. Like, and I've noticed this is like when you get married and you've got in-laws and you look at a whole 2 different families, full body makeup, and it's like, but we all live pretty much the same lifestyles, but we are definitely built differently. Like genetics is massive in this whole thing. All right. Next, good idea or bad idea. This one we might be on the same page as. Good idea or bad idea, Bobby? Pay a king's ransom for either Myles Garrett or Trey Hendrickson, both, as we talked about at the top of the show, AFC North pass rushers that want out. What say you?
Oh, pay a king's ransom. In other words, go against every single thing you're about organizationally, right? Did we have a tweet earlier that from Ken McCusick that I thought was a good sort of conversation starter for this? Let me just look back. Here it is. The Ravens' ability to find bargain bin, unrestricted free agent edge talent has never looked more valuable than this week with the Crosby signing. We discussed that yesterday. And the Hendrickson trade request. And I think that's a great way to start this. First of all, shout out Ken. He's the best. They've done exactly that, Sarah, the last couple of years. Eric has taken swings, whether it be in free agency or literally in season in Kyle Van Noy's case in 2023 when they were a few weeks into the season. And how's that worked out for him? Very well in terms of production. Obviously, in January, we've all been left wanting more when it comes to getting to the quarterback. But to me, this would go against, first of all, it's in division. So you'd be not only giving up a king's ransom, but you'd be giving that ransom to one of your division foes. So I'd be out on this. I think this is a bad idea. It's a sexy idea, but I think it's a bad idea.
It's an intriguing idea. It's like, oh, would love either one of them on the edge for the Ravens. But yeah, I think it's a bad idea because first of all, if Myles does not seem available, okay? Like, I know we keep living in this world right now. What I'm hoping for, because it's a realistic hope, is that they both dig their heels in and Myles sits out. That's what I want to see. Because then maybe next year they'll go ahead and trade him or cut him or whatever. And then if they cut him, then the Ravens really have a chance to get him, right? So to me, not that I want it for Myles, he's a great guy and I really want him to get a chance to win something, but not at the Ravens' expense. And so to me, what I'm ultimately hoping for this year is that he sits out, because I don't think that the Ravens are going to get him. I don't think they're going to have a chance in Hades to get him. And they would have to go way above. It would have to be a king and a queen's ransom and their mom and, the prince and princess next. And it's just not going to happen for them to trade him to a division rival like that. Trey Hendrickson, I also don't think the Bengals are going to trade him to the Ravens. So I think that, to Ken's point, there's a lot of good, how about Sweat from the Eagles, who just had 2.5 sacks in the Super Bowl? You don't even have to trade for him. He's about to be out there. Howie's going to let him walk. Howie Roseman, who can pay everybody, according to Ravens fans, he's going to let him walk. Okay, they're outside linebacker that sacked Patrick Mahomes 2.5 times in the Super Bowl is about to be out there. There's gonna be we should have another day where we look through all the free agent talent. And not only that, Bobby, not only is there going to be a lot of edge talent as veterans, but that's what's stacked in the draft. So to me, it's the wrong year to be going crazy. I think the Ravens are going to be able to find some solid players at good prices. Not just bargain bin. I think they can get solid answers in the room at pass rusher.
And you know what, too? And I'm just bringing up the available players that are expected to hit the open market at the outside linebacker position, many of whom we've discussed or at least had a cup of coffee around, like the Joey Bosa's, and I know we've mentioned the Khalil Macks. Look at the familiar face, Matthew Judon in Atlanta, set to hit the open market, and so on and so forth. But you just said something that I think is a great way of putting a bow on this second good idea or bad idea, which we're both lockstep on, which we think it's a bad idea to give up a king's ransom for a Trey Hendrickson or a Myles Garrett. Hit in the draft.
Right.
You have to hit in April. This organization prides itself on the draft, on the compensatory pick formula, on coveting these picks, and deservedly so. They've been the standard in a lot of ways in terms of how you team build through the draft and how you ultimately reward your homegrown players, which is what you've referenced a couple times this week. Hit on the draft. They haven't hit at X, and they have not hit in a long time in terms of that game-wrecking player. I don't know if he's going to be around at 27 unless you're willing to give up picks and move up the board. but you got to hit at some point in the coming Aprils.
Next coming Aprils. I like how you said that. Okay. Let's see here. Getting back to the third and final good idea, bad idea. Bobby, we just learned yesterday via reports that former Ravens cornerback Ronald Darby and former wide receiver / returner Devin Duvernay are expected to be released by the Jags. Okay, here's the news here on Devin Duvernay. And then here's the news on Ronald Darby, who was like a last-minute pickup in training camp a couple years ago and had a pretty good season. So what say you? Good idea or bad idea to reunite with both or one of these guys?
I think it's a good idea to bring back Devin Duvernay, who you drafted. I think you would fortify the void that you're looking to fill when it comes to return specialist. I know you have some candidates that are out there, but Devin is a Pro Bowler. He's an All-Pro, matter of fact. He was an All-Pro in Baltimore as a return specialist. So I like the idea of that. In terms of Ronald Darby, what a great story he was a couple years ago, like you mentioned. One of the unsung heroes that year. What were we talking about? It was 2023, right?
Yeah. Yes. Yep.
Yeah, en route to an AFC championship and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
But I would rather get younger at that position. And if Jeff is right that they're going to keep around Tre'Davious White, then I think that would suffice.
Yeah, I think everything you just said, I agree with. I really liked Ronald Darby that year. I mean, he really did bail the Ravens out with the injuries that they were having in 2023. But he took a significant dip last year, as Ken McCusick pointed out on X. When he was with the Ravens in 2023, he allowed 5.9 yards per target. Pretty good number there. But with the Jags, he allowed 9.8, just under, double. So, and he turns 31 in January. So, if he's still around in training camp and he can be, a veteran minimum, whatever, maybe. But I would like to see the Ravens try to upgrade for sure. I think the first priority is, like, I don't want Ronald Darby, like, here's who our new replacement is for Brandon Stevens for 17 games, right? That's not what I'm looking for.
No.
If you're in training camp and injuries hit and you need to be rescued again, like, go ahead and give Ronald a call. But for Kevin, or Devin, I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
The Ravens struggled on special teams last year. They struggled in the return game. You could get him for a veteran minimum deal. He'll become your like 5th or 6th wide receiver. You know him already. He knows you. I think that would be a great reunion. The Ravens ponied up for a returner last year. He just was dealing with injuries the whole time and never panned out. So I think the Ravens want to prioritize it, and it seems like he wouldn't be a bad idea at all.
Yeah, you're referring to Deontay Hardy, who
was
just banged up. It's too bad too, because he showed some flash the year prior. I think he was in Buffalo the year prior, if I'm not mistaken. So anyway, should we get to some super chats before quick hits?
Yep.